Hello and welcome to today's Iran Exile Hangout. I'm Michael Solana Mullings, and before we get started, I'd like to tell you about Sampsonia Way and the work that we do. SampsoniaWay.org is an online magazine with interviews, columns, literary excerpts, essays, and multimedia features by writers from around the world, along with daily coverage of global threats to writers. SampsoniaWay.org is published by City of Asylum, Pittsburgh, an organization that advocates for creative free expression as a basic human right. Our Exile Hangout is a unique space where exile writers talk, debate, and share ideas about literature and the current situation in their home countries. Today's Hangout brings together distinguished Iranian writers for an open conversation on literature, freedom of expression, and why not, maybe a bit of politics. We encourage you to join the conversation. Submit your questions via YouTube or on Twitter using the hashtag ExileHangout. It's now time to turn to today's moderator, Iranian author Marina Nemat. Hi, Marina.
Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We all very much appreciate it. So I'm going to jump in and introduce everybody who's on the panel right now. So I'm going to start with Mr. Omid Fallahazad. Omid is an Iranian-American writer who was born and raised in Iran and moved to the US in 2001. By then, some of his fiction had slipped past the censors and appeared in the literary magazines such as Asri Panshambe. Raftegan, his story about Iran-Iraq war, was shortlisted for the 2004 Bahram Sadiqi online contest. Recently, his fiction in English appeared in the literary journal Paul Revere's Horse and in Tremors, a newly published anthology of Iranian-American writers. Then we have Miss Moniro Ravanipour. Moniro was born in a village near Bushehr in Iran in 1952. She has 12 books published in Iran, and translations of some of her works have appeared in the West. She has written many screenplays for movie and theater, and has also written many children's books. In 2007, she was a visiting fellow in the International Writers Program at Brown University's Watson Institute. Ravanipour's work, considered non-conformist and honest in its portrayal of Iranians, has elicited government scrutiny in recent years. In late 2006, all copies of her new book were stripped from bookstore shelves in Iran in a countrywide police swoop. Two more of her novels are currently under review by Iran's Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance. Then we have Ms. Shahrnush Parsipur. Ms. Parsipur was born in 1946 in Tehran, Iran. She published short stories before publishing her first novel at the age of 28. After she protested the execution of two poets during the time of the Shah, she was arrested by Savak, the Shah's secret police, and spent 54 days in prison. Then she went to France to study Chinese language and civilization, but went back to Iran during the Islamic Revolution of 1979, after the success of which she was arrested 3 times and spent more than 4 years in prison. Altogether, she has written 13 books and has translated 4. Currently, Shahrnush lives in the United States of America. Now, yours truly, I'm Marina Nemat. I was born in 1965 in Tehran, Iran, and I currently live in Canada. After the Islamic Revolution of 1979, I was arrested at the age of 16 and spent more than 2 years in Evin, a political prison in Tehran. My memoirs, Prisoner of Tehran and After Tehran, have been published in 29 countries. I received the inaugural Human Dignity Award from the European Parliament in 2007, and I teach memoir writing at the School of Continuing Studies at University of Toronto. So again, I thank everybody for being here, all of our writers. I have to admit that I am a very big fan of both Ms. Parsipur and Ms. Ravanipour. So this is just an honor to be here on the same panel with them, and I totally appreciate it. Now we welcome everybody who's joining us online. It's absolutely an honor to have you. and you will have the opportunity to submit your questions. But I have prepared my own questions, and I'm going to start with Miss Ravanipour, and I'm going to ask her the very first one, and then we are going to work our way through the panel and asking everybody's opinion. So, Moniro, let's start with you. My first question is, how do you think the current dictatorship in Iran, whose reign began in 1979 with the success of the Islamic Revolution, has affected your life as a writer and your works?
Hello, everybody, and thank you, Marina, for your great question. Let me tell you a little bit about my situation. During revolution, I wrote a book, a short collection, a story that immediately banned and burned. After that, I decided to write for myself. After revolution, they killed my brother. They gave us his body, but they didn't let us to bury him. I don't want to tell this sad story and change the direction of this panel. And again, they didn't let my two younger sisters go to a school. And they arrested several times one of my brothers-in-law. My sisters and her husband sentenced to death. Fortunately, they escaped. Our house was attacked and pillaged. My family moved to Shiraz. Those days, I was a student in Tehran University. They suspended me and sentenced me. One day when I went to Shiraz to visit my mom, they arrested me. The first night of jail, as all of you know, is terrible. You know, it was horrendous and gruesome. I was surrounded by coldness and darkness. I hear voice shouting, yelling, a sound of gunfire. That night I promised to myself, if I got out from this place, I would get writing seriously. When I was released, I joined to Gulshir's group and started writing for myself seriously without having any dream for publication. So this book, my short story collection, took 8 years to be published. This one, The Gypsy by the Fire, took almost 10 years to be published. And the third edition of Satan's Stone was banned. And they told me you wrote about a dancer and prostitute. I have been writing on internet since 2001. I wrote my memoir, my poetry, my different chapter of my novels, and essay articles. And as you can see, those pressures gave me more incentive to write. You know, it was not easy. It was very painful. But at least I can say that I didn't give up. That was my story. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Moniro. That was certainly very powerful, a powerful testimony. And I guess, I don't know if I dare say that, we have kind of all been more or less in the same boat. So I think we all sympathize with that and we all understand that. Thank you so much for, again, for what you said. Now, let's move to Ms. Shahrnush Parsipur. Shahrnush, can you please elaborate on how you feel about the situation, how the situation has affected you and your life and your writing?
After revolution or before?
Yes, after the revolution, yeah.
After revolution, I was in France, and I studied Chinese and civilization of China. Then I decided to go back to my country, and I came back to my country. I went back to Iran, and I haven't your photos. I don't know what's the problem.
Okay, go right ahead. Don't worry about it. Go right ahead. Just continue.
Okay. I was arrested with all my family in 1981 because of some journals that they found in the car of my mother. And then they came and they arrested me because I had written a letter for Mr. Masood Rajavi. I didn't send this letter, but they arrested me and I spent in prison for 4 years and 7 months. And it was a
Okay, I think I have lost Shahrnush.
Yeah.
Okay, there she is back. Okay.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I can't hear it.
No, we have lost her. Just give Michael a minute. I'm sure he will. And Roya has just joined us. So, Roya Hakakian. Let's see what happens.
Hi there.
Roya?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Roya. It's very good that you have been able to join us. Let us see, because Miss Parsipur was speaking when you joined. Let's see if we can get her back. We are just waiting for our tech guy, Michael, to try to get her back on. Okay, I'm still waiting to get Shahrnush back. Not back yet. Okay, so let me just move on and introduce Roya in the meantime as we are working to get Shahrnush back. Now, I do have Roya Hakakian's bio here, so please allow me to read it for those who are online. Roya Hakakian was born in 1966 in Iran and is an Iranian-American poet, journalist, and writer living in the United States. Hakakian became well known for her memoir, Journey from the Land of No, in 2004. Her essays on Iranian issues appear in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and on NPR. Hakakian was a founding member of the Iran Human Rights Documentation Center and serves on the Board of Refugees International. So, Ms. Hakakian, Roya, we are very glad that you were able to join us. I still cannot see you, so let's see what can be done.
I'm happy to be here also.
Okay, great. Can you see us?
I can see you.
Okay, is your video on?
I think so, yes.
Okay, so in the meantime, Roya, I just want to put you in the loop here. So the first question we are talking about, and Moniro has already spoken and Shahrnush was in the middle of speaking, was how do you think the current dictatorship in Iran, whose reign began in 1979 with the success of the Islamic Revolution, has affected your life as a writer and your works? Okay, so Shahrnush was in the middle of speaking about that. Let's see if we have her back. Shahrnush, are you back?
Yes, I am back, but
okay,
it's
fantastic. Yeah, I think the disruption was because Roya joined us late. So it was in the middle of the conference and things got a little bit mixed up there. But now we have you back. So you told us that you went back to Iran from France, where you were to study when the revolution happened. And you were talking about that. Now, one question that came to my mind that I would like to hear from you is that why did you decide to go back to Iran? Now, I know that, but maybe there are some viewers listening to us that they wouldn't understand why you decided to go back to Iran. So if you can just elaborate on that and continue to tell us how it affected you.
Okay, because I was a writer, and as a writer, it was difficult to be a writer abroad, out of Iran. So I came back to my country, and I decided to live there and to be a person like other people. So I must speak, or I don't know.
Go ahead, yeah, please do.
Okay, after prison, I decided to work. It was very difficult because it wasn't any job for the people like me. I wrote my book and I translated several books. And 1 week after the death of Ayatollah Khomeini, my book, Tuba and the Meaning of Night, appears in the market, and it has a very astonished popular. All the people like it, and they bought it. So the government was aware that somebody is Shahrnush Parsipur is now a little famous, so they tried to destroy my situation. I had another book, its name was Women Without Men, and when this book published, they arrested me again, and they confiscated the book, and they banned all my books in Iran. Fortunately, this book has published in more than 20 languages now. But it was a very difficult moment, and then I decided to leave the country and live in the United States.
Okay, thank you so much, Shahrnush. Again, I appreciate that, and we will get back and we will discuss and we will open up the issues. Now let's go to Omid. Omid, can you please expand on the same topic and tell us how the revolution and its aftermath affected you and your writing?
I should say hi and thank you to everyone for the opportunity. To put things in perspective, I should just remind you that I think in terms of generation, we may be in different generation, because at the time of the revolution, I was only 4. So my experience with the revolution was coming from a minority with many difficulties, was more than anything the house burning riots in Shiraz, which I exactly remember the day that my mom took my hand, we ran away because the mob, the revolutionaries were coming and they were burning Baha'i houses. So my personal experience is, starts from that age rather than being a mature or an adult dealing with the turmoil or traumas. And if you think about that, I mean, I keep repeating the same thing to my friends here, that our generation, like many others in Middle East, been through revolution, war, natural disasters, social abuses, and problems that we have are numerous compared to average life in Western society. So that deforms whatever is our identity, regardless of being a writer. I mean, you can be a cab driver and it deforms you, it changes you in a dramatic way, not necessarily helping you, but it's too much. And that's why we hear the stories from Shahrnush and Moniro, that everyone tries to stay in that situation and survive. But at this point, as far as I know, many people at the same time are looking for an exit, to get out, to escape, because it's too much. So back to your question, I think eventually when I decided to become a writer, reading the works of other writers, like I remember at high school time I was reading Women Without Men, not kids necessarily, kids who were interested in reading. When you decide to become a writer, you also decide that you're facing an uphill challenge, that you don't know exactly where you go. And as Monir says, you don't know even if you get published, no dreams. You just think, this is something I want to do. And I think later, if we talk, I think I have some thoughts or explanation about that too. Why, even without no reward or dream, you still think that writing is something you want to do. You want to dedicate yourself to that.
Thank you so much, Omid, for your insight. I think one of the important things that you touched on, but that was that this situation currently in Iran that began in 1979, it has affected more than one generation. And I think that's also very important to keep in mind how these various generations of people, they have been affected by it. And I'm very glad to hear your perspective on that, because I was 13 when the revolution happened, and Moniro and Shahrnush were just a little bit older than that. They were university students. So again, these are various experiences coming in. I'm very glad that we can actually see Roya, so that's fabulous. I'm just so glad to see you, Roya. Hi. So Roya, the first question, I'm going to read it for you just in case you missed it.
Can I say hello to everyone?
Hi, hi Roya.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the first question, and please jump in. And we are asking, for answers that are not more than 2, 3, 4 minutes, because we want to kind of go around and try to have a discussion around various issues. So the first question we are commenting on is, how do you think the current dictatorship in Iran, whose reign began in 1979 with the success of the Islamic Revolution, has affected your life as a writer and your works? So Roya, if you want to jump in there.
It's like asking, how do you live with the elephant in the middle of the room?
Pretty much.
So there is nothing else that can affect any writer, I suppose, more than having to try to cope with first witnessing a revolution, then all the fallout from that revolution, then being transplanted on another continent. So it's that when you say the dictatorship, it's actually simplifying the issue, because it's far more complex. The dictatorship is one thing, but the dictatorship has produced a flurry of other outcomes that those have touched all of our lives. The dictatorship has put Shahrnush in prison. The dictatorship has driven our Omid out of the country. The dictatorship moved me and separated me from my family and threw me all the way first in Europe and in the United States. So the dictatorship isn't a static thing. It really deeply touched all of our lives, and as a result of it, I think it continues to be the elephant in the middle of the room, and we will probably, one way or another, continue to write about it for many, many years. Even when we don't write about it, I think we're writing about it.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, from here, let's actually move on, I guess, touching on what you just said. Now, when we say a dictatorship in general, there have been various dictatorships on the face of the planet, and I don't think in any case they can be simplified. They all have consequences. They have severe consequences. Sometimes they take thousands, sometimes millions of lives. So when we say dictatorship, we are not trying to simplify anything here. Dictatorship usually means terrible loss of life, of intellect, and of a lot of other things. It means families being torn apart. And I think all of us, we can easily say that we have friends and family members buried in mass graves in various parts of Iran. And well, all of us, we are writers in exile right now, so we have all been separated from the place where we were born, the place that we loved, and we have had to leave family members behind. But what this takes me again is actually this is the perfect pretext for the next question, because most of us, most writers and journalists and poets and intellectuals, they have experienced torture, imprisonment, and horrible things in Iran. And this cannot be downplayed at all. And these events, these are terribly traumatic events, and they terribly affect people. Now, post-traumatic stress disorder is a very wide-ranging word. So, I don't even want to use it. But I just want to say that we have all been terribly affected, psychologically, physically, practically. We have suffered from it. So my next question is, because, we have a dictatorship right now that has been ongoing for the past 30-something years, and before that we had the time of the Shah, and that was a dictatorship in a different form, but nevertheless it was still the dictatorship. So basically we have been dealing with a very long, many years of dictatorship. So this has affected us, and we have all suffered. So I'm asking this from all of you, can you be specific as, do you think that this situation, this horrible situation, has created any form of self-censorship or any form of peer censorship within the Iranian diaspora community. Now, I have my own experiences from that, but I think this is something we need to talk about as Iranian writers, because again, in my experience, we have been affected by it, some more, some less. But let's start with Moniro Ravanipour. Moniro, I know that you have to go earlier. So would you like to comment on that? Do you think that there has been self-censorship or peer censorship within the Iranian diaspora community?
Mariana, I can't stop being afraid of my own voice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, always I ask myself, am I a real writer? Can I write whatever I want when my friend, student, family are in Iran? I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to write something that would put them in danger. Because of this, I am not free, actually. I can't follow my imagination and my dream, even that I am here for a long time. You know, I have to protect them. I am responsible toward my friends, my family, my students. When I want to write a sentence, I'm always, you know, think about them. I worry. This is whatever I can say to you about my situation. Yeah.
Well, that's, I guess, touching on one side of this self-censorship, which is the fear. It is the fear for people who still have close family members in Iran. And even though writers are abroad, they are in various countries, in Europe, in the United States, they still feel that fear that what if I write something and the Iranian authority go after my family? And that fear is very, very real. And people struggle with it all the time.
You see, Mariana, I want to write without shame and without guilt. And because of this, I really think about those friends that I have in Iran. I am here in land of freedom, in land of opportunity. But what if I write a sentence and put them in danger? It is shame. It is shame for me. It is shame to put someone in danger or hurt anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we totally understand that. Now, Shahrnush, can we move to you now? How do you feel about that? I know that, you know, a while ago after my first book was published, we had a little conversation on the phone and we talked a little bit about more or less the same situation. But how do you see self-censorship or censorship within the Iranian diaspora community? How does it affect you and the people that you know?
You know, Marina, when you are in society, you are like a prisoner because you are surrounded by other people, and all the people have some senses and some intelligence that it doesn't work with your intelligence. So this is the problem that we have in Iran, and all the countries that they haven't. They haven't liberty. So yes, I have a very strong self-censorship, and I use it because, like Moniro, I don't want to hurt anybody.
Okay, now, is there any feeling in any other way? Like you talked about self-censorship, but have you ever said or published anything that had to do with your opinion or with what you feel about something, and then you were attacked by other writers, other members of the diaspora community, condemning you and attacking you in a very limited and sometimes aggressive way? Have you ever had that experience?
Not really, because when I write, I think about all the people, so I am aware of the problem of the people, and they never attack me really.
Well, that's good. That's very good and lucky, then, I would say. Okay, Roya, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
Not really. I switched from writing in Persian, which is how I started out as a writer, to writing in English, and much of my work remains in English, and I have found some difficulty writing the journalism that I write in English, where I get, you know, nasty emails, and as most recently last week, but it doesn't affect the way I write.
No, but you know what I'm saying here is, what are those nasty emails? What are they about? You know, I'm trying to open up this issue.
That's interesting. They oftentimes they're about my having been away from Iran and therefore not having the right to talk about Iran anymore. Oftentimes I'm told, what do you know? You left 20-some years ago, and you no longer know who's in Iran, who's running Iran. You have no sense of what this country was like. And it's very interesting because I say that to people who come you know, on a regular basis from Iran, that you're only good for the first year that you're here, because after that you're like milk, you expire. You know, and so that's one line of attack. The other is, you're Jewish. You know, Jews don't know. Jews write to support Israel, and you are opposing the regime in your journalism because you're Jewish and you want to strengthen the hands of right-wing Israelis. So that's the second line of attack that I get. And the third is often just a general attack on, you know, being a woman and being a modern woman who knows nothing about the plight of religious women in Iran. That you know, modern Iranian women who lived without a veil, who lived in Tehran, are a minority who have no idea of what the majority of Iranian women who wear veiled, who were Muslim, who had to work in the fields or on the farms, have no clue about, and we should therefore not say anything and not write about these issues. So these three themes keep coming up, and rather than cause self-censorship, they just do me a lot of good. I like getting nasty emails. They make me stronger, and I write even more.
Okay, that's fantastic. I'm very glad that you brought up this other side of it, of getting, you know, again, nasty emails because people disagree with you, because people don't like your religion, because people don't like your political standing. And
I'm not religious at all. In fact,
no, I understand. I understand. No, this is not about that. This is downright about being intolerant. This is about attacking the ones who are different. This is attacking the ones who don't exactly agree with us in whatever way. This has nothing to do with being religious or anything. But when people know that you're a Jew, when people know that you're a Baha'i, when people know that you're a Christian, even if you have never set foot in a synagogue or a church or a temple, that is how they see you. They don't see you as a thinker, as a writer, as a human being who has the right to express himself or herself, but they could see you as just that one-dimensional idea of a Jew or a Christian or a Baha'i or, you know, whatever. And sometimes this enters the political sphere because you don't belong to the same political right or left as I do, then you're less than a human being and you're not allowed to speak. So, you know, one of the things here is that sometimes we bring this idea of stopping the people who disagree with us, because this is something we have lived with all of our lives, more or less, because this is the kind of situation we have lived in Iran since any of us can remember, that if somebody disagrees with you, they are not allowed to speak. And sometimes we bring that with us to the diaspora and we attack each other, unfortunately, not us, like per se our group, but I mean Iranians within the diaspora community. So Omid, it would be interesting to see what your opinion is on it.
I just want to make it short, but I think the idea of self-censorship comes from always thinking or internalizing this thought that there is consequences for what I write. Something bad is going to happen to someone, to me, to others, to whoever reads this, and you keep looking over your shoulder that what is the outcome of this writing this time? If I write this way, who is going to be, harmed? And this is, to me, I think, I mean, I as I said, I'm a little bit relatively younger, and I started writing again with less hope, but eventually towards the reform era, and when I get a little bit published. But you always think about that what is the consequences of this piece of writing to others and to yourself? And it's in there. I don't know how you can get rid of it, but it needs practice. It needs time. And in terms of diaspora, I believe, again, based on agenda, if we call ourselves diaspora, if we believe in a common myth that we're going to go back to Iran or we're related to Iran all the time, based on agenda, yes, definitely you get signals of censorship that don't say this, don't do that. That would help, those people who would thinking about war or starting a war with Iran. I hear that because they say, why you portray Iran with this human rights issues? It just helps those people who are against, who are, as I said, who are planning a war against Iran. And it is difficult, but at the same time, panels like this or discussion and even more writing will help, hopefully.
Thank you, Omid. I think you brought up a very important issue, and that is that, yes, when you write about, like even in the form of fiction, when you write about human rights abuses, like terrible human rights abuses, horrific human rights abuses, in Iran, then, people within the community, they would come to you and they would say, why are you writing about this? Are you asking for Iran to be attacked? And then you find yourself defending yourself the whole time, saying, no, I have written about this because this is reality, because this is what is happening. People have been dying since I can remember. So by covering it up and not talking about it and pretending it's not happening, I'm not going to help nobody. This is reality, and I'm writing about reality, even if in the form of fiction. So yes, that uphill battle that I think all of us, we have faced in one way or another. And yes, it as Roya explained, I think it gives all of us, in a way, more determination, because you feel that you have stepped on toes here, some very big toes in some cases, and you feel even more determined to keep on going, to keep on writing, and to keep on exposing all of these abuses and all these horrible things that, all of us, every single one of us on this panel, in one way or another, we have been touched. I mean, the Shahrnush was in prison, I was in prison, Moniro has had family members, she has lost family members, she's had family in prison. I mean, you are a Baha'i, so we know how horrible Baha'i are being treated in Iran. They are not even acknowledged as a religious minority. I have Baha'i family members, and I'm always worried about them. So this has affected all of us for sure. But something that was touched on, and I think it is important, is how do you think, and this just came up, so this is not exactly in the list of the questions, but how do you think this issue of time, and that we have been away from Iran, and because we have been away from Iran, we are not allowed to have an opinion about what's going on there right now, or we are not allowed to write about it right now. How do you feel about that? Moniro, we are going to start with you again.
Pardon me, I didn't hear you.
Okay, so the question is, I think it was Roya who brought it up, or it was, I think it was Roya, that because we have been away from Iran for, let's say anytime more than a year, then we are not allowed to write about Iranian issues. We are not allowed to speak. Some people see it that way, and as Roya put it, it's like we are like milk that has an expiry date on it. So how do you feel about that? Have you ever been told that? And if you have, how you responded?
With internet, with this kind of networking that we have, then nobody can say this naive words. Now, we can connect to country in a second. Every night I can Skype to everybody all around the country. My connection is more stronger than before. When I was in Iran, I was in Tehran, I was sitting in my apartment and thinking about the situation, the dark situation. Now from this distance, I can look at everything and I can see more clear than before. I think this is a funny thing. This is incredible. I don't believe it, and I think this kind of sales is that is because they want to push us on the corner. Yes, they want to blame us.
Okay.
I don't believe it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Roya, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, yes. I think in a way, those of us who write fiction, Shahrnush, Moniro, have an easier time with the question of how long is it that you've been away. I happen to have written 2 books of nonfiction, and I think that becomes more problematic if you're writing nonfiction or journalism or opinion essays. Then the question becomes, when was the last time you were there? If you weren't there on the ground, you have no, you lose your credibility. But actually, I very much agree with what Moniro just said, that it's not only that the social networking systems connect us, it's also that I think you need to be away from the mayhem inside Iran, from the darkness, in order to see it in light. That, in fact, I think those who are inside the country, living under the censorship, not having access, are the ones who have a narrower view and probably a more limited expression. And those of us who get away, establish ourselves, spend a few years being depressed and worried and anxious, and then overcome those difficulties, hopefully manage to finally be able to see the situation in light of freedom, in light of all the beautiful things that living in a non-censorship country affords us.
Yeah, actually, you made a very good point. You brought up the issue of perspective. So sometimes when you're drowning in the middle of a dark storm with waves crashing over your head, and the heaven and the earth look the same, it is very difficult to see the sort of trouble that you're actually in. It's very difficult for you to have perspective. It's only when you look at it from the outside that you can actually see the depth of the problem and the depth of the situation. I totally agree with that. So yeah, I think we all agree on that so far. Shahrnush, would you like to add anything to this?
My literature has a place in Iranian modern literature. Right. It doesn't matter that I am there or I am here, because I am in contact with everybody in Iran, and naturally I know I have a situation there.
Exactly, and you have lived a large part of your life in that country, right?
Marina,
yes.
Marina, I want to add something. The border, you can't define border, exile in border. When you are alone, you are abandoned in your country, you are in exile. Then I couldn't write in Tehran when I was in Tehran. I was very confused. I couldn't think.
Exactly.
So they just want to say that the literature inside of country is much better than those writers that are writing outside. That there is no outside or inside. We are all writers.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah, very, very good point here, Moniro. Thank you. Omid, would you like to add anything?
I just want to say, as far as we talk about it and we write about it, we write about it. No one can say you have the right or you're allowed or you're not allowed. And history has shown. I mean, James Joyce wrote about Dublin when he wasn't there, and he wasn't there, and he wasn't there, and after 100 years, still there's pieces you can read about that city, that people. So I think we shouldn't argue about that. We write about it. They can say that whatever they say, and then the history will show, or the readers actually.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the readers will be the final judges of this. So actually, you know what, guys? I think we could kind of take a break here, in the sense that I have some questions from the people who are actually online listening to us. So I think it is important to acknowledge them. Here I have one viewer question. So if you could please pay attention to it. I'm going to read it slowly. Is it difficult to reconnect or stay connected with the literary scene of Iran while living in a foreign country? I think to a certain degree we have responded to that. That with the online world, it's actually easier to connect with writers when you're abroad than it is to connect with writers when you're inside of Iran. Now, do you agree with that? Omid, what do you think?
I think Moniro and Shahrnush, I don't know about Roya, but I think they're really well connected with the literary scene in Iran. I'm less, because this switch to writing in English takes a lot of energy and time, and I have to be very selective once in a while, look over and see what's out there from Iran, in more than anything in fiction, obviously. But it's not that hard. I mean, it's just a matter of discipline or intention. Do you want to stay connected? So you have to get the books and read them and read about them. If it's the matter of connection means just getting information. If to be active, that's a different story. I don't know how you can write here and hope that you get published there or get read there. That's a different story. And as I really believe Moniro and Shahrnush are more aware of the situation.
Okay, so let's go to Moniro. Moniro, what do you think about this?
Marina, I have 10 Facebook and many readers. You know, the time that the time of riding camel is over. Yeah. So, you know, we have internet, Facebook, Twitter, everything. And every day, every second, I can connect to anybody I want. Then what is that? I didn't have, you know, no, Mariana, I didn't have so many friends that I have right now in all my life. So I write something on
Are you
Facebook.
sure they're friends, Moniro?
Yeah, most of them, all of them. Readers. No, I have those body that writing to you, Roya, those letters. I have some of them, but I know them. So,
do you? What do they say to you?
Oh, they just tell us about my. They ask me about my life. Are you alone? Are you single? Or are you living with your husband? Still living with your husband? They are curious about my life mostly. And sometimes they say, oh, you got too old. And I say, okay, yes, everybody will get to your age. Everybody getting old, and this is not only me. But I know that they come from where? So, but I have a lot of readers, 10,000 really. I put one video. You know, I read a story. I'm dancing in the Red Square or Nariya Mastane. Ooh, how can I publish a story and I get this kind of reader? You know, it is not. It is ridiculous saying this.
Okay, I think you know, it's easy at this point to just wrap this up and say, you know what, this is absolutely ridiculous. We are as connected to Iran as anybody can be. I mean, we are actually more connected to Iran now that we live abroad than when we lived in Iran. And Shahrnush, do you agree with that we are more connected than ever?
Yes, of course.
There we go. So we all agree on that. Let's move on a little bit now. You know, I can also. I'm still reading the viewers' questions, and one of them here actually that I'm seeing on my screen has to do with the issue of language, and that's actually a place that I wanted to get to, but we are tight on time, so I'm going to jump to that one. And the question that we have here, because we are Iranian writers, we went to school in Iran, our first language, or my first language is Russian, but most of you, your first language is Persian. So, you know, how difficult it is when it comes to translation or writing in a different language, because every language has its soul. So when you switch from one language to the other, whether you are now writing in a different language or when your works are being translated into another language, which is one of the viewers' questions, how do you think that affects your writing? How different do you think it is to write in a different language? So, you know, again, because Moniro has to go, she has a doctor's appointment, so I'm going to go to her because she might have to leave, so I apologize. Moniro, go ahead.
Thank you so much. You see, the immediate problem, the immediate challenge for me was language. You know, I was in a land of freedom, you know, freedom of speech, but I couldn't speak. You know, in which language I have to speak. I have been writing in Persian for all my time, and now new audience, new culture, new people, new language. You know, I really try to learn English to communicate with my colleagues, but it was not easy. For three years, I was wondering whether I should write in English or Persian. For 1 year, I started writing my memoir in English, and after that, I switched back in Persian. And then finally, Marina, I told myself, stop it, don't killing yourself. Write whatever you want and however you can. Okay, but writing about traditional things, writing about my hometown, south of Iran. South is always south for me. South of Iran. Our tradition, our ceremony, torturing, arresting, Gothic and grotesque story, it is much easier for me to write in Persian. But when I want to write about love, the beauty of human body, it is much easy for me to write it in English, and I don't know why really.
That's interesting. You brought us something very interesting here. Shahrnush, what do you think?
Oh, can I go, please?
Yes,
I'm very sorry. I have an appointment with Dr.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and kiss all of you, and love all of you.
Okay,
bye.
You too, Moniro. Thank you so
bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Omid. Thank you, Marina. Bye,
Thank you, Moniro. We'll talk later.
Bye.
Shahrnush, what do you think about this? What role does language play for you?
I have written always in Persian, but 4 of my books have translated into English and other languages. I'm not sure if they are good translations. For example, I can read German or Polish, so I don't know. Till now, I haven't tried to write in English, but recently, sometimes I write something in English.
Okay, so you are basically working in Farsi. So how about you, Roya? Because I know you write a lot in English, so how does it work for you?
When I wrote my memoir, it was my first real experience writing in long form, because even in Persian, I had only primarily written poetry. And then not only writing in long form prose for the first time, but also writing in English. And it's probably among the most important, significant, life-changing experiences of my life, because I think that I learned to think in a way that I couldn't with my Iranian head. In order to write proper English prose, I had to also think the way an American does, and an American or an English writing person doesn't think the way an Iranian or English writing, Persian writing person thinks.
Can you elaborate on that exactly in what way?
In Farsi, we take lots of liberties. We're not supposed to. We celebrate ambiguity, we celebrate indirectness, we celebrate complexity in writing, especially in writing poetry and prose. And in English, none of these things are considered virtue. Indirectness, ambiguity, unnecessary complexity are all considered things that get in the way of communication with the reader, and these are all the things that you're supposed to work on, edit, redraft, rewrite in order to change. You're not supposed to use too many metaphors. They get in the way of communicating clearly and directly with your audience. So I basically had to learn to look with my Iranian eyes through the American perspective, and that was probably one of the best writing educations I've ever received. It wasn't so much that anybody, I went to writing school or a novel writing school or nonfiction writing school. It was just having to make the philosophical and the transition in the perspective from a Persian writer to a writer who writes in the Persian medium to a writer who writes relatively effectively in the English medium. And that transition was a whole MFA and writing education for me in a way that nothing else has ever been.
That's very interesting. Thank you. You know, one of the things about language that I find, you know, it was an interesting discovery for me was that when I wrote my first memoir, Prisoner of Tehran, I actually found it much easier to write in English than I found writing in Farsi. And one of the things I later discovered when I was talking to psychologists and psychiatrists was that when there is a terribly traumatic experience, which mine, I guess, would qualify, writing in different language actually creates an emotional barrier. So this is why many writers who have gone through traumatic experiences, they write about that experience in another language. And people don't realize that using another language actually creates a sort of almost a safety net. And it makes it emotionally less painful to write about a difficult experience. That was my experience of writing in English. Now, Omid, what do you think about this? Because I know you were interested in this.
I think I just want to say that I agree with what Roya said, and it's even more problematic, or it magnifies when an Iranian, for example, writes in English and uses any technique or style elements that has ambiguity in it, or things like that, being a little bit experimental. They look at you like you don't get it, and they want to correct you, and they want to tell you, no, you have to write it straight, clear, things like that. I just mean any intentional, maneuver that you have in your writing style, to them is something that they think that could be a problem, and they try to correct you, your readers, your editor, or whoever you work with. And this is something that you have to deal with. There is a really big change from the literary scene in Iran when I was trying to write short stories or a novel in Iran 15 years ago, compared to what I'm trying to do now. In terms of the language itself, and the way it can feel, a little comfortable with it, I feel it's something that requires, again, more a conversation and flow of information. I'm curious about Roya's work and your work, that how you started writing in English, what was the phases you went through, and I have my own experience that I like to share with people and get a better sense of this. Other than that, it's less known. It's a little bit mysterious. I mean, even writing fiction in your own language is a little bit mysterious when you have a successful piece of work. But writing in a different language, then you have all these questions about how people handle the language, and again, felt comfortable about it. You read about Nabokov, you read about Conrad, and then now you have a generation of people from Middle East, Africa, even Europe, that they write in English as a second language. I'm just a student of that field, I believe. I like to learn about that.
Yeah, I guess that is definitely a very important topic. Now, from my experience, every individual writer is different. Like, my English was already very good when I arrived here in Canada in 1990. So using English language was not an obstacle for me at all. I had all my life, I had read books in English, and English was my third language. Russian was my first. So some of the problems, Roya, and you have had when it comes to the style of writing in Farsi, I know what you're talking about, those complications, those long sentences, those long paragraphs. I never had to deal with that because, again, my background was Russian and I had read English literature all my life. So I didn't have to battle with that problem. Now, because we are very tight on time, we are extremely tight on time. There's this one question here that it could be, interesting for our viewers to hear. It is a viewer question, and it says, are there independent writers associations in Iran today? If so, how effective are they in defending freedom of expression? So, Roya, do you want to tackle it?
I wish Moniro and Shahrnush were on. I know that
Yeah, I think
from time
Shahrnush
to
is
time,
fine. Yeah.
there have been efforts by writers inside Iran to have groups together, to bring those groups together. And as soon as they have had something going, there has been a crackdown. So as far as I'm concerned, there are none, or if there are any, there isn't any that's really effective.
That's right. I totally agree with you. Omid, what do you think?
I think I have to say no comments because I don't know much. I mean, I know the stories. I know everything that we know about 10, 15 years ago, or more, even before that, and what happened to many writers. And then after that, it was more difficult. At this point, at this time, I really don't know exactly how they organize and how effective they are. I know they have difficulty and they want to do something, but I think it's very limited.
Yes, it is very limited. And what I hear from friends inside Iran, again, talking to them online, basically, yes, there are writers groups and they get together and they try to do things, but it's impossible to get published because the Ministry of Information doesn't allow these works to get published. And there is a lot of crackdown. So if they discover that you have been gathering, like a group of writers, thinkers, they have been gathering, the next thing you know, you're in prison. So that's basically more or less out of the question. So the answer to that question, I guess, is that no, there aren't any effective. Now, again, it depends on what that means. But our time is up. So unfortunately, we have to say goodbye. But it was an absolute pleasure and an honor to meet all of you, to have the opportunity to talk to you. And I have to say thank you to Sampsonia Way and to Orlando especially for facilitating this, for sending all of those emails, and I thank everybody who joined us online. Thank you so much, and I certainly hope to do this again. So take care, everybody. Roya, Omid, you're still here. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.